In this video here, we just want to make sure that we're very clear on the idea that making current and voltage measurements are different things. It sort of might be obvious that they're different because when you get a meter like this that has the two probes, it's called a voltmeter, an ammeter, or a multimeter because it measures multiple things. But as you can even tell by looking at the faceplate, there are different settings on here. Voltage and current in particular have very different settings. So we just want to make sure that we're clear on what it means to do that. There are some electrical symbols out there, A for ammeter, V for voltmeter, and these are the symbols used for when such a test device is placed in a circuit. And so, for instance, I think probably about the simplest circuit that we're going to be dealing with soon is something called a voltage divider, which looks something like this, which is no more than a circuit here that has a couple of resistors in it like that, and sort of goes around. And these could be light bulbs or other components or whatnot, but there might be two types of measurements you want to make, and what we want to emphasize is the placement of the meter in the case here. So suppose we wanted to measure the total current flowing through this circuit that might come out of a battery here and sort of flow around like that. Supposing in the case of V out, maybe let's not be so abstract like this. Why don't we just go ahead and put a battery here, like a 9-volt battery, something like that. So here's a 9-volt battery, goes up like that and down like that, and we'll call that V. So this voltage might feed the whole circuit. So if we wanted to measure the current, remember that the current is flowing in this circuit. There's a current flow within the wires here. So if we wanted to measure that, we would have to break into the flow to get an idea what that flow would be. So we'd go right in there and put an ammeter in like this. And so that's where you see the placement of an ammeter like this. This implies that the electricity or the electrons are trying to flow around the circuit here, but you're forcing it to go through this meter, then out of the meter, in order to keep the circuit operating. If you wanted to get a voltage measurement, then voltage is always done across elements like this. And so the voltmeter would go in something like this and like this, just to measure the voltage across an element like that. So you might see ammeters and voltmeters placed in circuit like this, but the emphasis, of course, is that a current measurement, you need to break into the flow. You need to put the meter into the flow there to get a measure of what that flow would be, where a voltage measurement is always across something. So as we go through these videos, we're always going to try and be very careful about the language that we use here. In particular, we might say something, you want to measure, let's say if we use the word current, we're always going to use the word through. Is the key word, might measure the current through the device. We never say current across, or sometimes you can say current in, but it's very correct to say the current through a device because that's what current does. It always flows through a device, and that again implies this measurement technique here where the ammeter is placed in the circuit so the current flowing through can be measured. Another thing you can say is you can say the voltage, and to be very correct, you're always going to say the voltage across something. It's never voltage through something, it's never voltage on something, it's always voltage across something. So I think we'll just adapt these words throughout this electronics video series here. We're always going to measure the current through a device and always the voltage across the device. And that's exactly what the placement of these meters means, exactly as how they're used. There's the ammeter in the flow, measuring the current through. Here's a voltmeter measuring the current across the resistor. If you want, you can put another voltmeter right here to measure the voltage across this resistor. Or you can put a voltmeter over here to measure the voltage across that battery, for instance, here. That would be another way of placing that meter there. You would never, for instance, see a situation like this, where maybe you have a battery like this here and it's feeding a resistor like this, and you put a voltmeter in like this. This would just be nonsense. This isn't measuring the voltage across anything. It looks like it's sort of a voltmeter inserted into the flow of the current there, which is incorrect. The result would just be meaningless. Likewise, if you wanted to measure something across this resistor right here, you would never put an ammeter right there to measure that. You just would not see this type of usage of the meters in here because it's not current through or voltage across. Just wanted to make sure we're clear about that, and that's some of the vernacular through here throughout this video series.